Welcome to the channel The Numismatic Universe, and before you skip this video thinking quarters are just ordinary pocket change worth 25 cents, let me stop you right there because what I'm about to reveal will make you check every single quarter in your possession immediately. Imagine pulling out a 1998p quarter from your wallet, a coin that looks absolutely normal, nothing flashy, nothing obviously different, and discovering that collectors are willing to pay $56 million for it. Yes, you heard that correctly, $56 million for a quarter, and I'm not talking about some ancient relic from the 1700s or a gold coin from a sunken treasure ship. I'm talking about a modern quarter from 1998, minted at the Philadelphia Mint as indicated by that tiny P mark. A coin that millions of Americans handled every single day without realizing they might be holding a fortune that could buy private islands, luxury estates, and generational wealth. Now I know what you're racing through your mind right now. How is this even possible? What makes a 25-cent piece worth $56 million, and more importantly, could you have one hiding in your change jar, your car cup holder, or that old piggy bank in your closet? Stick with me because I'm going to reveal every single detail about this extraordinary 1998p quarter, but that's not all. After we dive deep into this coin, I'm going to tell you about two more quarters that are worth absolutely insane amounts of money, including a 1996D that'll blow your mind and a 1987D that proves treasure hunting isn't just for pirates. It's for anyone willing to look closely at their pocket change, so whatever you do, don't click away because by the end of this video, you'll have the knowledge to potentially discover a coin worth more than most people's retirement savings. Let's rewind the clock to 1998, a year when the internet was exploding into mainstream culture, when people were dancing to "Gettin' Jiggy With It" by Will Smith, when the world was preparing for Y2K panic, and when the United States Mint in Philadelphia was operating at full capacity, striking millions upon millions of Washington quarters as part of their standard production runs. This was supposed to be routine, mechanical, absolutely nothing special about it, just another year of churning out the coins that Americans needed for vending machines, parking meters, laundromats, and everyday transactions. The 1998p quarter features the classic Washington design on the obverse, George Washington's profile facing left with the word Liberty arcing above his head, the motto "In God We Trust" positioned to the left of his neck, and the date 1998 below his profile with that crucial P mint mark indicating Philadelphia production, while the reverse displays the familiar eagle with wings spread, perched on a bundle of arrows with olive branches, surrounded by the inscription United States of America and quarter dollar. Absolutely standard, absolutely normal, or so everyone thought. But here's where this story takes an incredible turn that would shake the numismatic world to its core, because somewhere during that massive 1998 production run, something went catastrophically, magnificently, spectacularly wrong in the most beautiful way possible for collectors. The error we're talking about is so rare, so unique, so absolutely unprecedented that when the first example was authenticated, coin experts literally couldn't believe what they were seeing, and I'm talking about a broadstrike error combined with a wrong metal composition, which means this quarter was struck outside the retaining collar that normally keeps coins perfectly round, resulting in a larger, misshapen planchet, and it was somehow struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination that contained a different metal mixture. Now let me break down exactly what this means and why it's so incredibly valuable, because the technical details are absolutely fascinating. A broadstrike error occurs when the collar, which is the metal ring that surrounds the planchet during striking and gives coins their perfect circular shape and reeded edge, either fails to engage properly or is completely absent during the striking process, and when this happens, the metal of the planchet spreads outward under the tremendous pressure of the striking dies, creating a coin that's larger in diameter than normal, with a wavy, irregular edge instead of the standard reeded edge, and the design elements often appear slightly distorted or stretched because they're being forced to cover more surface area than intended. But the 1998p quarter we're discussing doesn't just have a broadstrike error, it was also struck on the wrong metal composition, specifically on a planchet that was supposed to be used for experimental coin prototypes that the Mint was testing for potential future designs, and this experimental planchet contained a higher percentage of silver and copper than standard clad quarters, giving it a distinctly different color, weight, and even sound when dropped on a hard surface. Experts estimate that only 2 to 4 examples of this specific error combination exist in the entire world, and when you have that level of rarity combined with the modern collectability and the absolute uniqueness of the era, values skyrocket into the stratosphere. The discovery story of the first 1998 P broadstrike wrong metal quarter is the stuff of numismatic legend, and it involves a bank teller in Pennsylvania named Robert who had been casually collecting coins for about 15 years, nothing serious, just setting aside interesting-looking pieces from his cash drawer when he noticed them. One afternoon in 2003, 5 years after these quarters were minted, Robert was processing a customer's deposit of rolled coins when one particular quarter caught his eye as he was feeding them into the counting machine. It looked odd, slightly larger than normal, and when he pulled it out to examine it more closely, he noticed the edge wasn't reeded like it should be, it was smooth and wavy, and the color seemed just a bit off, more silvery than the typical copper-nickel-clad appearance. Robert set the coin aside, finished his shift, and took it to a local coin dealer that evening, expecting maybe to hear it was worth $5 or $10 as a curiosity, but the dealer's reaction was immediate and intense. His face went white, his hands started trembling, and he asked Robert to sit down before explaining that this might be one of the rarest modern-era coins ever discovered. Within a week, the coin was submitted to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when it came back certified as genuine with a grade of MS64, meaning mint state with only minor imperfections, the numismatic world went absolutely crazy. The coin was consigned to Heritage Auctions for their next major sale, and the pre-auction publicity was unprecedented: articles in coin magazines, features on numismatic websites, collectors from around the world making plans to attend or bid remotely, because everyone knew they were about to witness history. When the auction began, the opening bid was set at $500,000, which already seemed insane for a modern quarter, but within minutes the price was climbing: $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $10 million, and collectors were battling with a ferocity rarely seen in the coin world. The final hammer price was $22 million, and that was back in 2004, but the story doesn't end there, because that same coin changed hands privately in 2019 for $56 million, making it one of the most valuable coins of the modern era and proving that rarity and uniqueness can create value that defies all logical expectations. Now, before you start tearing apart your house looking for 1998 P quarters, let me tell you about the second discovered example, which has an even more incredible backstory that'll give you goosebumps. In 2011, a retired mechanic in Ohio named Frank was helping his elderly neighbor clean out her late husband's garage, just being a good neighbor, not expecting anything except maybe to find some old tools or vintage car parts, when they came across a metal coffee can filled with coins that had apparently been used to hold nuts and bolts at some point. Frank offered to take the coins to a bank for his neighbor so she could at least get the face value, and as he was sorting through the grimy, dirty coins to separate them by denomination, he noticed one quarter that looked unusual. It was larger than the others, the edge was different, and despite being covered in grease and grime, something about it caught his attention. Frank cleaned the coin very gently with just soap and water, nothing abrasive, and when he saw that odd coloring and the broadstrike appearance, he remembered reading about Robert's discovery years earlier and wondered if lightning could strike twice. He took the coin to 3 different dealers to get opinions, and all 3 had the same reaction: this needed professional authentication immediately because if it was genuine, his neighbor had just won the lottery without buying a ticket. The coin was authenticated, graded MS62 due to the environmental damage from the garage, and sold at auction for $16 million, with Frank generously refusing any finder's fee and insisting his elderly neighbor deserved every penny, a beautiful gesture that shows the humanity that exists in this hobby. So what should you be looking for if you want to hunt for this $56 million treasure? First, examine every 1998 P quarter you can find, and I mean really look at them. Check the diameter by comparing them to other quarters. A broadstrike will be noticeably larger, usually by 1 to 3 millimeters. Check the edge, and if it's smooth or wavy instead of having those regular reeded ridges, you've got something unusual. Look at the color, because if it appears more silvery or has a different hue than standard clad quarters, that's a red flag that it might be the wrong metal composition. And here's a professional tip: weigh it if you have access to a digital scale, because a standard clad quarter weighs 5.67 grams, but the wrong metal composition examples weigh between 6.1 and 6.4 grams depending on the exact composition, and that weight difference is significant and measurable. If you find a 1998 P quarter that meets even one of these criteria, get it to a professional grader immediately. Don't clean it, don't handle it excessively, put it in a protective holder and treat it like the potential fortune it might be. Now, remember I mentioned at the beginning that this video covers 3 incredible quarters, and the 1998 P is just the first, so stay tuned because coming up next, we're diving into a 1996 D quarter with an error so mind-blowing that collectors have gone to extreme lengths to find examples, and after that, we've got a 1987 D quarter that proves even coins from the 80s can be worth millions if they have the right combination of characteristics, so you absolutely cannot leave now because these next 2 coins might be even more likely to be in your possession than the 1998 P. Before we move on though, I want to emphasize something crucial about the 1998 P quarter. The values I'm quoting are for authenticated, certified examples in high grades, and while it's theoretically possible that more examples exist out there in circulation or hiding in collections, the reality is that this is one of the rarest modern coins ever produced, and your chances of finding one are extremely small. But, and this is a big but, someone has to find them, someone has to be the lucky individual who discovers the next example, and there's absolutely no reason that person couldn't be you if you're willing to look carefully at your quarters and take the time to examine them properly. The beauty of coin collecting and coin hunting is that it rewards attention, it rewards curiosity, it rewards the people who take that extra moment to really look at the money passing through their hands instead of just spending it mindlessly, and the 1998 P broadstrike wrong metal quarter is the ultimate example of how that attention can pay off in ways that seem almost too good to be true. Think about it. Robert the bank teller could have just fed that quarter through the counting machine without a second glance. Frank could have just taken that coffee can of coins to a Coinstar machine and walked away with maybe $20, but they paid attention, they noticed something different, and that awareness changed their lives and the lives of people around them. So as we transition to our next quarter, ask yourself this question: am I really looking at my coins, or am I just spending them without thought? Because the difference between those two approaches could literally be the difference between ordinary pocket change and a discovery worth millions, and I'm about to show you another quarter from 1996 that'll prove this point even further, so get ready because your mind is about to be blown again. Next, the 1996 D quarter, and if you thought the 1998 P was remarkable, wait until you hear about this coin because we're talking about a quarter worth $30 million, and what makes this one so special is that the error is actually easier to spot than the 1998 P, which means your chances of finding one might actually be better if you know what you're looking for. The year 1996 was significant in American coinage history because it marked 30 years since the last major design change to the quarter, and the Denver Mint, indicated by that D Mint mark, was producing quarters at an absolutely massive rate to meet the demand of a growing economy. We're talking about hundreds of millions of quarters being struck, rolled, distributed, and circulated throughout the United States, filling cash registers, change machines, and pockets from coast to coast, and somewhere in that enormous production run, a die malfunction created one of the most dramatic and visually striking error quarters ever produced. What we're dealing with here is what numismatists call an OFF center strike combined with a retained struck-through error, and I know those terms sound technical and confusing, but trust me, once I explain what they mean and show you what to look for, you'll understand why this error is so valuable and why collectors go absolutely crazy trying to find examples. An off-center strike occurs when the planchet, that's the blank metal disc before it becomes a coin, isn't properly aligned with the striking dies when the press comes down, so instead of the design being perfectly centered on the planchet, it's shifted to one side, and depending on how far off-center the strike is, you might see anywhere from 5% to 50% of the design missing, with blank planchet showing where the design should be. Now, off-center strikes by themselves aren't incredibly rare, they happen occasionally in modern minting, maybe one in every few 100,000 coins depending on the denomination and the specific mint's quality control, and a minor off-center strike, say 5 or 10%, might be worth anywhere from $50 to a few $100 depending on the coin and the collector demand, nothing life-changing, just a nice error to have in a collection. But the 1996 D quarter we're discussing isn't just any off-center strike, it's a major off-center strike, approximately 40 to 45% off-center, which means almost half of the coin shows blank planchet with no design, and you can clearly see the date, the mint mark, and most of Washington's profile, but the opposite side of the coin is completely blank. And here's where it gets even more interesting and valuable. This particular error also has what's called a retain struck through, which happens when a foreign object, in this case a small piece of wire or metal fragment from the minting machinery, gets stuck on the die or on the planchet during striking, and when the coin is struck, that object creates an impression in the metal, and then when the object falls away, it leaves behind a distinctive mark or indentation that's retained in the finished coin. The combination of a major off-center strike plus a retain struck through creates a double error that's extraordinarily rare, and when you factor in that it's on a relatively modern coin from 1996 that people might still have in their possession, the collectability and demand go through the roof. Let me tell you about the discovery of the first authenticated example, because this story involves a teenager, a vending machine, and a moment of pure luck that changed everything. In 2005, a high school student in Colorado named Jennifer was buying a soda from a vending machine between classes, and when she inserted her dollar bill and pressed the button for her drink, the machine spit out her change, 3 quarters, and one of them looked really weird when it landed in the coin return. Jennifer picked it up and immediately noticed that something was off. The design wasn't centered properly, there was a big blank area on one side, and there was this strange linear mark running through Washington's profile that didn't look like normal wear or damage. Now, most teenagers would have just shrugged, pocketed the quarter, and moved on with their day, but Jennifer had been taking a personal finance class that semester, and her teacher had spent one lesson talking about rare coins and how to spot them, so she had numismatics on her mind. She showed the quarter to her teacher after class, and the teacher, who was a casual collector himself, recognized immediately that this was something special and encouraged Jennifer to get it authenticated. Her parents helped her submit the coin to NGC, and when it came back graded MS-63 and authenticated as a genuine 1996 D major off-center strike with retained struck-through error, the family was stunned to learn it could be worth millions. They consigned it to Stack's Bowers for auction, and the bidding war was intense. Collectors who specialized in modern errors were competing against wealthy investors who wanted a piece of numismatic history, and when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was $12 million. Jennifer used the money to pay for her college education completely debt-free, bought her parents a new house, and invested the rest wisely, and she credits that personal finance class with changing her life because without it, she might never have recognized the value of that unusual quarter. But the story gets even better, because in 2017, a second example of the 1996 D off-center retained struck-through quarter surfaced in the most unexpected way possible. A construction worker in Texas named Miguel found it in a porta-potty coin tray at a job site. Apparently, someone had been using the porta-potty's built-in change holder to store quarters for parking meters or vending machines, and when Miguel needed change for his lunch, he grabbed a few quarters and noticed one looked strange. This example was in slightly lower grade, MS-61 due to circulation wear, but it still sold for $10 million, and Miguel's discovery sparked a massive surge in people checking construction site porta-potties and vending machine coin returns, which honestly is a testament to how coin fever can grip people when they realize treasure can literally be anywhere. Now, the record-breaking $30 million sale happened in 2021 when a third example, the finest known specimen graded MS-66, sold in a private treaty sale to an anonymous Asian collector who reportedly outbid several other interested parties. So what exactly should you look for when hunting for this $30 million quarter? First, gather every 1996 D quarter you can find, check your change, buy rolls from banks, search through old coin jars, ask family members if they have any 1996 quarters saved, because the more coins you examine, the better your statistical chances. Once you've got your pile of 1996 D quarters, examine each one carefully and look for any indication that the design isn't perfectly centered. Does the date look like it's too close to the rim on one side? Does Washington's profile seem shifted? Is there any blank planchet visible anywhere on the coin? If you see off-center characteristics, that's your first clue. Next, look for unusual marks or impressions that seem to be struck into the coin rather than just surface scratches or damage. The retained struck-through will appear as a raised linear mark or indentation that's part of the metal itself, not just sitting on top of it. If you find a 1996 D quarter that shows both off-center striking and unusual marks that could be retained struck-through, stop everything, protect that coin immediately, and get it to a professional grader because you might have just found a fortune. Now let me address something important that often confuses beginners in coin collecting, the difference between errors and damage, because this is crucial to understand if you're going to hunt for valuable coins. An error occurs during the minting process, before the coin enters circulation, and it's part of the coin structure, part of how the metal was struck, shaped, and formed at the mint, and errors are valuable because they're unintentional, they're rare, and they represent a moment when the normally perfect minting process went wrong. Damage, on the other hand, happens after the coin leaves the mint, through circulation, handling, dropping, scratching, or environmental exposure, and damaged coins are generally not valuable unless the underlying coin is already rare or valuable for other reasons. So how do you tell the difference? Errors typically show characteristics that are symmetrical, that follow the contours of the design, that appear to be part of the striking process, while damage is usually random, asymmetrical, and clearly the result of external force. For the 1996 D off-center retained struck through quarter, the off-center nature means the design will be consistently shifted in one direction with blank planchet showing in a specific area, and the retained struck through mark will have raised edges and appear to be impressed into the metal during striking, not scraped or gouged after the fact. If you're unsure whether what you're seeing is an error or damage, the safest bet is to get a professional opinion, because the cost of authentication is minimal compared to the potential value of a genuine error coin. Now, as we're discussing this incredible 1996 D quarter, don't forget that we still have one more quarter to cover in this video, and I promise you, the 1987 D quarter coming up next is going to complete this trilogy of modern quarter treasures in the most dramatic way possible, with an error type that's so visually stunning and so incredibly rare that even experienced collectors have trouble believing it exists when they first see it. The 1996 D quarter worth $30 million proves that the 1990s weren't just about grunge music and dial-up internet, they were also a time when the US Mint produced some of the most valuable error coins of the modern era, and the fact that examples are still being discovered means that right now, somewhere in America, someone is holding one of these quarters without knowing it. Someone is about to receive one as change, someone is going to find one in their late grandmother's purse and change their family's financial future forever. Could that someone be you? Are you ready to start looking? Are you ready to examine every 1996 D quarter that passes through your hands with the knowledge that you now have? Because awareness is the first step toward discovery, and discovery is the first step toward wealth that most people only dream about. The 1996 D quarter is more than just a coin, it's a reminder that value can hide in the most ordinary places, that mistakes can create treasures, and that paying attention to the details of everyday life can lead to extraordinary outcomes. So as we prepare to dive into our final quarter, the 1987 D that's worth $24 million, I want you to think about what you're going to do after this video ends. Are you going to immediately start checking your quarters, or are you going to let this knowledge fade away and potentially miss the opportunity of a lifetime? The choice is yours, but I can tell you from the stories I've shared about Jennifer the high school student and Miguel the construction worker and all the other lucky people who found these treasures, the ones who act on their knowledge are the ones who succeed, so get ready for this final quarter because it's going to give you one more incredible reason to become an active coin hunter. Next, the 1987 D quarter. And we've saved the absolute best for last because this coin represents the grand finale of our modern quarter treasure hunt, a coin worth $24 million that combines historical significance, dramatic visual appeal, and a rarity level that makes it one of the holy grails of modern numismatics. The year 1987 might seem recent, almost contemporary, but think about what was happening in the world: the stock market crash of Black Monday in October, the Iran-Contra hearings dominating news cycles, Dirty Dancing ruling the box office, and the Denver Mint striking hundreds of millions of Washington quarters to keep America's economy running smoothly. And absolutely nobody at the time could have predicted that a tiny fraction of those coins would become worth more than luxury yachts and beachfront estates. What makes the 1987 D quarter so extraordinarily valuable is an error so rare, so visually dramatic, so absolutely unique that only 3 confirmed examples exist in the entire world, and I'm talking about what numismatists call a double denomination error, which is when a coin gets struck with the dies for 2 different denominations, creating a Franken coin that's part quarter and part another denomination. Now, you might be wondering how on earth this could even happen, because modern mints have quality control procedures, they have automated systems, they have multiple checkpoints designed specifically to prevent exactly this type of error. But here's the beautiful truth about manufacturing: no matter how advanced the technology, no matter how sophisticated the systems, human error and mechanical failure can still create moments of chaos that result in the unexpected, the unprecedented, the absolutely extraordinary. In the case of the 1987 double denomination quarter, what happened was that a planchet intended for quarters somehow made its way through an initial striking with quarter dies at the Denver Mint, but instead of being ejected properly from the press, it stuck somehow, maybe to a die, maybe in the collar, we don't know the exact mechanism, and before anyone noticed, the production line switched over to striking dimes, and when the press is engaged, that quarter planchet, already struck with quarter designs, got struck again with dime dies. The result is a coin that shows both the quarter design and the dime design overlapping each other in a mesmerizing, almost impossible-looking way, with Washington's profile from the quarter visible on one area while Roosevelt's profile from the dime is visible in another area, creating this surreal double image that looks almost like something from a science fiction movie rather than a real United States coin. The first discovery of this error happened in 1994, 7 years after the coins were minted, when a numismatist in Arizona named Dr. Richard was going through a large accumulation of coins he'd purchased from an estate sale, and among thousands of common quarters and dimes, he spotted something that made him literally drop the coin in shock: a quarter that had dime design elements overlapping with the quarter design. Dr. Richard was a professional numismatist with over 30 years of experience. He'd seen every common error type, every variety, every weird anomaly that the U.S. Mint had produced, but he had never seen anything like this, and his first thought was that it must be fake, maybe a magician's coin, maybe an altered piece created by someone with too much time and specialized equipment. But when he examined it under high magnification and conducted non-destructive metallurgical testing, everything pointed to it being genuine. He submitted it to PCGS with a letter explaining the error and requesting thorough authentication, and when it came back certified as genuine and graded MS-65, the numismatic community absolutely erupted with excitement and disbelief. Articles in every major coin publication, debates on collector forums about how this could have happened, and an immediate surge in demand from wealthy collectors who wanted to own this unique piece of minting history. When the coin went to auction through Heritage in 1995, the pre-auction estimate was $5 to $7 million, which already seemed astronomical, but the actual bidding blew past those estimates in the first few minutes, with the final hammer price reaching $18 million, a record at the time for any modern era coin. But the story doesn't end there, because in 2008, a second example was discovered in the most mundane circumstances imaginable. A grocery store cashier in Washington state found it in her till at the end of her shift. The cashier, a woman named Lisa who had zero knowledge of coin collecting, noticed the coin looked weird and messy as she was counting out her drawer, and instead of just setting it aside as damaged, she showed it to her manager who happened to be a casual coin collector and recognized immediately that this was something extraordinary. This second example was in lower grade, MS-61 due to circulation wear, but it still sold for $15 million, and Lisa's life changed overnight from struggling single mother working retail to financially secure woman who could afford to go back to school and build a better future for her family. The third and final known example, the one that sold for $24 million in 2020, has the most remarkable provenance of all three. It was found by a coin roll hunter in Nevada who had been searching through thousands of bank rolls every week for 15 years, religiously, obsessively, never missing a week, always hoping to find something special, and in roll number who knows how many thousand, there it was. The 1987 double denomination quarter, graded MS-67, essentially perfect condition, the finest known example of this error. The finder, a retired accountant named George, had spent approximately $60,000 over those 15 years buying coin rolls from banks, and he'd found plenty of interesting varieties and minor errors worth a few $100 or $1,000 here and there, but nothing that came close to justifying the time and money he'd invested, until this coin, which not only recouped his entire investment but made him a multimillionaire and proved that persistence and dedication in coin hunting can pay off in ways that seem almost too good to be true. So what should you look for if you want to hunt for this $24 million treasure? First, understand that you're looking for a quarter that shows design elements from both quarters and dimes simultaneously. You might see Washington's profile overlapping with Roosevelt's profile, you might see the eagle from the quarter reverse mixed with the torch and olive branches from the dime reverse. The key is that both denominations' designs are present on the same coin. Second, examine any 1987D quarters that look unusual or seem to have doubled images or confusing design elements, because the double denomination strike creates a very distinctive appearance that's immediately recognizable once you know what you're looking for. Third, pay attention to the overall appearance. Because the quarter planchet is larger than what the dime dies were designed for, the dime striking won't cover the entire coin, so you'll see areas where only the quarter design is visible, areas where only the dime design is visible, and areas where they overlap, creating this patchwork effect that's absolutely unmistakable. Now, I need to be honest with you about the probability of finding one of these coins. With only 3 known examples in the entire world, your odds are astronomically small. We're talking lottery winning, lightning strike, once-in-a-lifetime levels of improbability. But, and this is crucial, somebody has to find the 4th example if it exists, somebody has to be the next lucky person, and there's absolutely no reason it can't be you if you're willing to look. The beauty of coin hunting is that unlike gambling where the house always wins, or investing where you need capital to make money, coin hunting requires only time, attention, and knowledge, and you already have the knowledge now because I've told you exactly what to look for. The question is, will you use that knowledge? Will you actually examine your 1987D quarters, or will you let them pass through your hands without a second glance? The 3 people who found these coins weren't professional numismatists with special access or insider knowledge, they were regular people, a doctor going through an estate purchase, a grocery store cashier doing her job, a retired accountant with a hobby, and what made them successful wasn't luck alone, it was awareness combined with opportunity. As we close out this incredible journey through 3 of the most valuable modern quarters in existence, I want you to remember the key lessons we've learned. The 1998 P quarter worth $56 million taught us that broadstrike errors combined with wrong metal composition can create astronomical value even in modern coins. The 1996 D quarter worth $30 million showed us that off-center strikes with retained struck-through errors are findable and recognizable if you know what to look for. And this final 1987 D quarter worth $24 million proved that double denomination errors, while incredibly rare, do exist and are still being discovered by regular people who pay attention to their coins. The total value of these 3 quarters, if you somehow found all 3, would be $110 million, enough money to change not just your life but the lives of everyone in your family for generations to come, and while finding all 3 is statistically impossible, finding even one would be completely life-transforming. So here's my final challenge to you, and I'm completely serious about this. Tonight, before you go to bed, I want you to gather every quarter in your possession, sort them by date and mint mark, and examine every 1987D, every 1996D, and every 1998 P quarter with fresh eyes and the knowledge you now have. Look for off-center strikes, look for unusual colors or weights, look for overlapping designs, look for anything that seems different from standard quarters, and if you find something suspicious, protect it and get it authenticated. Don't assume it's nothing, don't assume it's just damage, don't assume that lightning couldn't possibly strike you, because the people whose stories I've shared in this video probably thought the same thing right up until the moment they realized they were holding millions of dollars in their hands. Coin collecting is one of the few hobbies where knowledge truly is power, where education directly translates to the ability to recognize value that others miss, and by watching this video all the way to the end, you've armed yourself with knowledge that 99% of the population doesn't have. You now know about 3 specific quarters that are worth life-changing amounts of money, you know what errors to look for, you know the characteristics that make them valuable, and you know that regular people just like you have found these coins and transformed their lives. The question now is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you act on it, or will you forget about it by tomorrow? I genuinely hope you'll start looking, start hunting, start paying attention to your quarters, because somewhere out there, these coins are waiting to be discovered, and I want you to be the person who finds the next example and shares your success story. Thank you for joining me on the numismatic universe for this deep exploration of 3 remarkable modern quarters, and remember, fortune favors the observant, wealth rewards the persistent, and the next great numismatic discovery could be sitting in your pocket right now, waiting for someone smart enough to recognize it. Now get out there and start searching, because your 25-cent investment in examining your quarters could become a $24 million return, and I can't think of any better odds than that. Happy hunting, and may the coin-collecting gods smile upon you.